For 3 decades, New Mexico has ranked the lowest among the worst states to raise a child. Why do you think that is? What are other states doing right that we just aren't doing here in New Mexico?
So one of the things I've looked at over the last, specifically the 7 years since the Family First Prevention Services Act was passed in 2018 by Congress, and it was a big push to keep kids out of congregate care, just warehousing kids. And one of the exceptions to that is what they call QRTPs, Qualified Residential Treatment Programs. New Mexico is one of only a handful of states that still doesn't have one 7 years later. And so we are spending money on like the receiving center or a new group home in Las Cruces, which the feds aren't going to match with reimbursement dollars, Title IV-E funding, instead of doing something that they've laid out, which is a QRTP. And instead of having kids sleeping in offices, we could have, sometimes it's a residential type setting like a RTC, but there's also QRTPs around the nation that operate more in like a group home family type setting, where the counselors are there on site, almost like cottage homes. And so I think we're missing an opportunity to get these kids out of CYFD offices. And instead of funding studies and more consultants, why aren't we funding a solution that the feds approve of?
You got an answer to that? Not why?
I don't have an answer to that why. I think it goes back to the philosophical shift that we just want to send these kids home. We don't want them in treatment foster care. We don't want them in foster care. And we definitely don't want them in congregate care. CYFD has made that clear. But there's a level of care out there that we could be utilizing that actually provides treatment. It has to be trauma informed. It has to have assessments. It involves the courts. Within the first 60 days of placement, a judge has to have eyes on whether that kid is supposed to be there. And then one of the crucial parts that I think we're missing is on a QRTP, when the child discharges, that QRTP has to provide follow-up and discharge services for 6 months with that family, making sure that they're staying attached to community services, those wraparound services that a lot of places in rural New Mexico don't have, but it's setting that family up for success.